Hello, and welcome to my podcast, Empowered to Thrive. I'm your host, Corrine Powell. I'm an intuitive guide, and I absolutely love helping people to heal from within so that they can create a life that they love, a life that they enjoy. We weren't meant to just tolerate and get through life. We were meant to thrive and enjoy the life we're living. Of course, we will have seasons and moments that are difficult and challenging. And the beauty of it is that we can be supported in those moments. I am here to be an aid and a guide to support you. And I hope that you will enjoy not only today's episode, but some of the past episodes if you haven't heard them yet. On this podcast, I talk about all things inner wellness. We also sprinkle in some spirituality and parenting, because as a mom to 3 kids, parenting is a big part of my life. I hope that you enjoy the episode and that there's at least one thing you'll pull from it and start to implement into your own life. If you want to follow me in other ways, you can find me on Instagram, Corrine_Change Radically, or on Facebook, Change Radically. Would you do me a favor and share this podcast with your friends if you hear an episode that resonates with you? And would you also go ahead and give me a rating and review my podcast? It would mean so much to me, and I would appreciate it. I hope that you enjoy the episode and that we connect. Hello there. I am so excited for you to be able to listen in to this conversation that I had with Peta. Peta Coote is a non-clinical certified intuitive eating coach and self-kindness guide. She is a self-professed cat lady who always has a cup of tea to hand. Peta works with adults, coaching in self-kindness, body image, self-worth, and intuitive eating, as well as in schools around the world with children and teenagers. I enjoyed my time with Peta very much. She is knowledgeable, and the heart that she carries exudes right through the airways. So I hope that today you will enjoy part 1 of a 2-part conversation. And if you resonate or you are touched by anything that is said, please share with a friend. I'm very interested to know how you got into the work you do.
So I worked in schools in education, both in teaching English as a second language in Barcelona in Spain, and then later on as an emotional support assistant for children and for teenagers. And I was kind of teaching languages as well to adults. But what I found was that I would end up within these lessons, I'd end up doing a lot of coaching, and we'd be kind of talking about their life and the things they were deciding to do. And I think in terms of that kind of coaching side of things, it came from that. And then when it comes to intuitive eating, I've always had a few different things going on with food. So I have allergies and intolerances, but I didn't really know that through my teenage years and kind of through my early adult years. And I also had that very typical late teens, early adult diet culture really ingrained within me. And so I had the apps, and I tried the different kind of diets, and I thought that when I looked a certain way, I would be successful. I would be able to achieve everything I wanted to do if I was a certain size or if I was a certain weight. And I was pretty ill when I was 21 years old. I had a tumor in my neck, and it made me really, really unwell. I was really, really sick, and I lost a lot of weight during this time as well because I was vomiting a lot. And it made me really aware of how incredibly important our bodies are, how amazing they are as well, how they can heal. But it also kind of set me on that path of understanding what I can eat, what foods feel good, what foods satisfy me, and what foods work for my body. And then from there it kind of snowballed into me doing a lot of research around this, and later on training within intuitive eating, and really understanding it as a concept of what we were born to be able to do, eat intuitively, But as we grow up and as we evolve, different things, different messaging, culture, society kind of plays a huge role in how we think and feel about food in our body. And that intuition can become foggy, and it can at times become blocked.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And how is your health now?
It's very good. So I have a chronic illness called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS for short.
Okay.
And so I have flare-ups, but because of all of the kind of personal growth work I've done, it means that I'm now at a point in my life where I can manage it really well. So I know if I'm on the brink of a flare up, and I will slow myself right down. And my whole lifestyle is kind of tailored around this and ensuring that I am as well as I can be out in whatever season I find myself in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad for that.
Thank you.
So if you want to jump in and share with us whatever is on your heart around intuitive eating, I am all ears, and I'm really looking forward to just hearing what you have to share.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So many people will kind of describe intuitive eating as something that we can relearn, because the premise and the theory behind it is that we are born intuitively knowing when we're hungry, and we can intuitively tune into being full. So a baby will cry when they're hungry, and they will pull away from milk when they're full. There's no kind of forcing a baby to eat if it doesn't want to eat.
Yeah.
And so with toddlers, until the toddler starts to kind of understand a parent's cues of, come on, just a little bit more. If you just eat a bit more, I'll let you do whatever it is. That's where very well-meaning parents kind of begin, that messaging from those well-meaning parents begins to start to disrupt that tuning into that hunger and that fullness. So if a child kind of goes, I'm hungry, I'm really hungry, can I have something to eat? And a well-meaning adult around them says, well, it's only an hour until dinner, you can wait.
Okay.
That's that kind of, okay, I can wait, and they wait, but then they're starting to ignore those hunger cues. Just like if a well-meaning adult says to them, oh, if you just eat like a spoonful more, or you just eat that little bit of vegetables there, then you can go and play, or then you can have this for dessert. It really starts to very subtly disrupt that those signals that are kind of signaling to us, I'm full, I'm comfortably full, I don't need to eat anymore. And so this theory that we're able to relearn it sounds very simple, and I think that can be something that really, it makes it quite difficult to learn intuitive eating if you think it's going to be simple, because whilst the theory behind it is simple, it isn't easy if your hunger and fullness cues are really disrupted. If you've kind of spent a long time submerged in diet culture, ignoring those cues, trying to change your body, yo-yo dieting up and down with your weight. There's so many food rules and beliefs that we need to unpick. And so I like to think of it as learning to eat intuitively rather than relearning. And we're learning about ourselves as well, and to tune in to our intuition. So I think that even for those who are like, oh, I really struggle with my intuition still, I'm not quite there with it. I think that this can be a brilliant way in, because it's something that we have to do. We have to eat multiple times a day. And it is something that many people will struggle with, that relationship with food, and how they feel about food, and you know, how they think about it, their beliefs, their ideas around food. And so with intuitive eating, there are 10 principles to intuitive eating, but I don't really want to focus on those 10 principles too much, because it comes really naturally. And so if we're kind of focusing on beginning to notice when we're hungry, and beginning to notice do you know what? Actually, I'm comfortably full. Everything very naturally comes from there. So the principles work through hunger and fullness. It works through kind of letting go of dieting rules and beliefs. And it works through the satisfaction factor and feeling really satisfied with what you're eating. Noticing your energy levels, noticing what foods sustain your energy levels and which foods actually just like you eat them and then half an hour later you're hungry again. And there's nothing wrong with eating those foods, but it's about knowing, oh, hang on a moment, when I eat that, half an hour later, I'm hungry again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how it feels in my body. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not greedy. I'm not eating more than I should. This food doesn't sustain
Yes.
my fullness levels, and that's totally okay. And I think that kind of working within intuition, and especially around food and eating, it's a fantastic way to really start to tune into that gut instinct, and get to know yourself and get to know your true self really well, because like I said, it's something that we're doing multiple times a day, so it's that opportunity to tune in. Mindful eating and intuitive eating are they're different concepts, but they beautifully kind of overlap and complement one another. So intuitive eating is about tuning into your intuition. It's about honoring your hunger and fullness, and not kind of following any hard and fast rules. Whereas mindful eating is about the practice of eating mindfully and slowing down, really noticing the tastes and the textures and the flavors, and noticing how full you are and if you'd like some more, if you wouldn't. But I have found that in the work that I do, I've worked with many clients over the years now. I've been doing, this is my 9th year in September of Nourishing Soulfully. So I've been doing this for a while now.
Yeah.
And I found that it's incredible the changes that come from learning to eat intuitively within a person's life in terms of their self-worth, their self-confidence, really learning to trust themselves, not just with food and eating, but in all areas,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of acceptance of themselves and their body and the body that they have.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just absorbing what you're saying and thinking about how this has played out in my own life too, because I didn't really think about it from that perspective of from childhood, like the cues that a parent might give, or how they might direct their child in eating and how that could impact. But I do know I used to never feel the hunger satiation. Like I just didn't know. I knew I was needed to eat because of other things that my body would cue me in. But for me, it wasn't until I actually tried intermittent fasting a couple of years ago. So I'm curious, like, because for me, it like reset something in my body. And I actually now feel hunger when I need to eat. I don't have a headache, or I don't feel weak or nauseous. You know, like those used to be my cues. Like, oh, I need to eat. I know my body needs food. But for someone who, say, is just going this route of intuitive, like learning intuitively how to eat, what does it mean when, like, I'm just curious, like, would that have worked, or did my body need some sort of reset? What have you found from the individuals you've worked with?
Oh, really great question. So often those kind of the headache, the feeling nauseous, the feeling shakiness, that comes along when we're extremely hungry. We've ignored the kind of peckish, little bit hungry cues and signals. They haven't arrived for whatever reason, or we've overlooked them. And then our body's kind of gone, I've got to do something here because I'm really hungry. So I'm going to kind of stop sending as much stuff to wherever. And this is kind of what happens. We go into that starvation mode. And what happens is when we get to that place where we're that hungry, we will eat anything, because we're in the survival mode of whatever is available. And the most kind of sugary, quick fasting foods are the ones that we're going to quick acting foods are the ones that we're going to reach for in that moment. But when it comes to intermittent fasting, I wonder whether this has kind of worked as a reset for you, in terms of, if I work with a person who has dieted for a long time, and after a couple of weeks we're finding that they're just not able to tune into those hunger cues, what we do is I ask them every morning to eat their breakfast at the same time for a couple of weeks. And this resets our internal body clock, and it kind of cues us. After a little while, at that time, we start to notice these hunger signals coming. And so I wonder whether that's how that worked for you, if you were eating at a specific time when you were fasting.
Well, I was certainly eating like at a specific, more of a specific number of hours after I had stopped. Yes. So, yeah, so that's very interesting to hear, because it does make sense. I had created some sort of rhythm, routine, something, because it felt like a total reset in my body. There were so many other things. I wasn't doing it at all to lose weight. I heard a doctor in a webinar speak of it in a way that I was unfamiliar with, because I had heard of it from the dieting standpoint.
Yep.
Like, do it 3 days a week. This doctor was speaking of doing it as like making it a lifestyle, and finding out what number of hours worked well for each individual's body.
Yeah.
And there was a bit more to it than that, but I heard it at the perfect moment. It was exactly what I needed to hear, and it was transformative for me. But I do think what you're saying makes so much sense, that like that idea of eating at the same time, and then the body learns, right? Like, oh, if I'm hungry now, I'm going to be fed.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I had so longed to actually feel the sensation of hunger, that it was really, like, for me, it was a relief. It's something I'm grateful for every day. Like, because it's almost frustrating to know you need to eat, but not feel hungry. Like, again, I knew, like, those cues would be, okay, I need to eat. Okay. But it's actually more satisfying to feel hungry and then eat.
Oh my goodness, isn't it just? And there is a real dissatisfaction in that kind of, I'm eating because I know I have to, because I need it to survive.
Yeah.
And
Which
just treating it as fuel for the body.
Yeah. Yep. I'm interrupting the episode because there's something I want to tell you about. I'm starting up another round of group coaching. It'll begin September 27th, and I will host 4 meetings. We'll end October 25th. They will be held on Tuesday evenings at 7:15 Eastern Time. Now, this is for you if you're looking to create internal or external change. And yes, that sounds broad, so let me help you understand what we'll be talking about during those meetings. We'll be touching on mindset, why you think the way you do, why you function the way you do. We'll touch on how you view yourself. What do you think of your body? Are you taking care of yourself in the way you need to? Are you compassionate enough towards yourself? We will also talk about your inner child. How did your experiences as a kid, and how are those experiences impacting you even to this present day? But we will not just talk. I will give you actionable steps that you can run with to create change in your life. And I will speak to your inner self so that you find healing and transformation at a deep level. And this is not me trying to promise you something that you're not going to get. This is me speaking from a place of experiencing it myself and observing those that I work with experiencing it as well. So I hope that you'll reach out and connect with me, or go to my website, changeradically.com, and sign yourself up. This is going to be a fabulous opportunity, and I am looking forward to having each one of you join me on those Tuesday evenings. Now, back to the episode.
So I also wonder, in terms of the kind of intermittent fasting, and around to kind of resetting as well. What we find with intuitive eating is someone may kind of have their dinner and then go to bed, and the next morning they wake up absolutely ravenously starving. So within intuitive eating, we either use a hunger and fullness scale, which ranges from 1 to 10, or the words uncomfortably hungry, hungry, neutral, full, uncomfortably full. And I have had clients in the past kind of share with me in their food diaries, I'm waking up really uncomfortably hungry. I am absolutely starving. I'm not sure why. And this is where we kind of go, I'm really curious as to see, let's have a look at, if we add in a snack in the evening, how is that going to make you feel? Yes. And what kind of thing would you like to try? And then seeing how you feel the next day when you wake up in the morning. And so that idea of kind of your body not having food for a certain time, which is what happens with fasting, it's looking at it really gently and going, to what point do I feel satisfied and comfortably full? And then what sustains me through the night? Because our bodies need fuel to do everything that they've got to do during the night. They do a whole lot of processes. And so if we're waking up uncomfortably hungry, having a think about what's going on here, whether we wake up a bit earlier to have breakfast earlier, or whether we have a snack kind of in the evening, not right before bed, but in the evening at some point, and seeing if that balances it out. So it's a lot of being really curious and non-judgmental towards ourselves, and kind of going, I wonder if I try this, let's see what happens, let's see how this kind of makes me feel. And also for those who menstruate, keeping in mind that throughout your cycle, your hunger and fullness is going to change, and what sustains you is going to change. So you're going to have periods of time where you are so hungry and you eat so much more compared to other times. So for me, for example, I know in my cycle on days 26 and 27, I will always reach for like toast or crackers or biscuits quite a few times in the day as snacks. I'm really hungry, and that's because my body's getting ready to do something. It's getting ready to have that period, and it's getting ready to go through something that actually is really not very nice, and it needs that extra energy for. And before I started kind of tracking this and tuning in and understanding it and recording it so that I could see what was happening, in my mind, the narrative that I was telling myself was that, oh, I always eat toast. Like I always have toast for snacks all the time. This can't be good for me. It's not very nutritionally kind of beneficial. It's all the time. It wasn't all the time at all. It was for 2 days throughout my cycle that I'd have more of those foods. So just kind of noticing these things and being aware of them, it means that we can be kinder to ourselves and more gentle and go, oh, of course, that's why I do that. That's there's no need to feel bad about that. There's no need to feel guilt or shame about that. That's totally natural. My body needs that fuel for what's coming next.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. It's got me curious because I'm in the middle of a pregnancy, and I do have to eat to survive. That's definitely the feeling. But just the other day, my husband and I were talking about, I wonder, because obviously, certain foods last longer, sustain me more, but you just started like thinking about, I wonder what's more going on, because some days it's just, I can't keep like the feeling of sickness at bay. And a lot of that is very attached to how much I've eaten. But it's a fascinating thing. I'm just thinking, I'm pulling from the things you're saying and just feeling like I need to get a little more curious. I've been curious. I've been trying different things. But a part of me just chalked it up to like, I just have to endure it. It's pregnancy, but another part of me does think there's more that I can get curious about and maybe discover.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? So I know, for example, even as something as simple as I'm British, so I drink a lot of tea. I'm
Uh-huh.
very stereotypically British in that respect. And black tea. And so in the morning, if I have a cup of tea first before anything else,
Mhm.
I'm very likely to vomit with it. If not, I will feel really nauseous for a while, a good while. But if I have like a cup of lemon and honey with hot water and something for breakfast to eat, and then I have tea, I'm absolutely fine.
Mhm.
My stomach, obviously, for whatever reason, needs that in there first before I have the black tea.
Mhm.
Now, I drink on average about 15 cups of black tea a day, a lot of tea. Um,
Wow. Okay. Yes. You put that into perspective for
yeah,
me.
and after I've had my breakfast, I'm never sick with tea. But if I have it before, I would say there's probably a 90% chance I'll be sick.
Mm,
And it
yeah.
wasn't until like I was like, this is really confusing, what's going on? Because I have other allergies as well. And so I would kind of go through everything I'd eaten the night before and the day before, looking for, could there have been kind of like cross contamination? What's going on here?
Mhm.
But actually, it was the tea causing it in the morning.
Wow.
So it's so good to get curious about these things and question and go, that's really interesting. I wonder why I'm feeling like this, or I wonder if it could be this, and what happens
Mhm.
if I experiment with changing things up a little bit.
Mhm.
And it's about remembering that we don't have to stick to rules, and
Right.
we're humans, and so our bodies change. And of course, through pregnancy as well, it's about ensuring that you don't do anything too drastic, but like you said, getting curious about what's happening and having a little think as to maybe why these things are happening.
It's actually a hopeful thing, a hopeful thought. We've come to the end. What did you think about what you heard? I hope that there's something you pull from today's episode and start implementing it into your life. Create the change that you want to see, the change that you hear about. You have the opportunity to transform your life, and I'm ready to link arms with you and to help and guide you to the life that you want to live. If you resonated with what you heard today and it touched you, would you share it with your friends? Would you also go ahead and rate my podcast and write a written review? It would mean so much to me. I hope that we'll connect, whether it's for a session or just to connect because I enjoy meeting new people. You can find me on Instagram, Kareen_Change Radically, or on Facebook, Change Radically. You can also always email me, Kareen@changeradically.com. If you have thoughts, questions, or anything that you just want to talk about, send me an email. I hope that you have a wonderful week. But no matter what your week is like, in the moments that are quiet, maybe it's when you pillow your head at night, or when you're driving in the car or taking a walk, or maybe it's going to be in the midst of the chaos with your children or the craziness of work. I hope that you'll remember how significant you are, that there is meaning and value to your life, and that I, for one, am so glad that you're alive. Catch you again next week.